think we are good to go. I'm going to kick it off. Happy Wednesday, everyone. I am Tiffany Serbus-Gustaveson, a digital strategist with BWG Connect, and we are a network and knowledge sharing group. We stay on top of the latest trends, challenges, whatever is shaping the digital landscape. We want to know and talk about it. We're on track to do 500 of these webinars this year due to the increase in demand to better understand the digital space. And we will have done at least 100 in-person small format dinners. So if you happen to live in a tier 1 city in the US, feel free to send us an email or go to our website, bwgconnect.com, and see where we'll be at in different cities throughout the US. If you're interested, you can always send an email, contact me, Tiffany at bwgconnect.com, and we'd love to have you at one of these dinners. They're typically 15 to 20 people having a discussion around a certain digital topic, and it's always a fantastic time. We spend the majority of our time talking to brands. That's how we stay on top of the latest trends. Would love to have a conversation with you, so feel free to send me an email at Tiffany, Tiffany, at bwgconnect.com, and we can get some time on the calendar. It's from these conversations we generate the topic ideas we know people want to learn about, and it's also where we gain our resident experts, such as NetElixir, who's with us today. Anybody that we asked to teach the collective community has come highly recommended from multiple brands within the network. So if you're ever in need of any recommendations within the digital space, please don't hesitate to reach out. We have a short list of the best, and we'd love to provide that information to you. Also note that we do partner with the hiring agency, Hawkeye Search, formerly BWG Talent, that we can put you in contact with as well. A few housekeeping items. We want this to be first and foremost fun, educational, conversational. Put as many questions, comments you have into the chat. The Q&A, both are enabled, or you can always email me at tiffany@bwgconnect.com, and we will get to them as we talk. And we started here about 5 minutes after the hour. Rest assured, we're going to wrap up at least 5 to 10 minutes before the end of the hour to give you ample time to get to your next destination. So with that, let's rock and roll and start to talk about the top 7 e-commerce marketing trends for 2024. The team at NetElixir have been awesome friends and partners in the net with BWG Connect for years now. I think you guys are like one of the first partners with BWG Connect. So Udayan, I'm going to pass it over to you. You can introduce yourself. That'd be lovely. And then we'll dive into this information. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Tiffany. And hi, everyone. Happy holidays. I mean, this is always a special presentation, Tiffany, because we have been doing it now for, I believe, about 5 years now. And every year has been so different, but this year, I think I've not really seen any year like this one. So very excited to share some of the trends. And also I'll start with the Cyber 5 insights and results that we have seen as well. A bit of a cautionary note, Tiffany, as you know very well with my presentations, it is extremely content heavy. So if you have, and plus my accent doesn't really make it any easy. So if you have any questions, or I sort of tend to go too fast, get too passionate about it, just feel free to stop me and I'm happy to answer any questions. We would love to take any questions you have. So please feel free to add them to the chat box.
Sounds good. Thank you.
So just a quick thing, I'll just do a quick introduction about the company, about NetElixir. We'll talk about the Cyber 5 performance insight. This was our 16th year, Tiffany, of doing the holiday results tracking. Incidentally, we did the first one in 2008 when Twitter was still pretty much in the first year, and now it is not even called Twitter anyway. Cyber 5 high value customer behavior. This we use our own AI marketing tool called NetElixir Insights to track that, and then I'll wrap up with 7 e-commerce marketing trends based on all the insights that we have been able to gain working with about 150 plus customers, all in the retail e-commerce side, and just extrapolating as to what does future look for them. A quick introduction about the company, but before that, a little bit about me. I am the founder and CEO of NetElixir. We started the company almost 20 years back. We'll be celebrating our 20th birthday, Tiffany, on the 26th of Jan, so about a month away.
Congrats, that's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, we can say we survived. Let us just put it that way. So we really have had this opportunity to really look at the digital evolution in multiple waves and so on and so forth. I also am very privileged to be an innovation fellow at Columbia Business School's Entrepreneurship Center. I love lecturing. So I'm in Johnson School of Management, the Indian School of Business, and the CUNY Baruch. I sort of do some guest lectures there as well. A little bit about the company and what differentiates NetElixir. We have been around for a long time. I think in terms of the independently run company, we believe that in the Google top 27, what we call the agency leadership circle, we are the only one exclusively with an e-commerce background, of the retail and direct-to-consumer e-commerce customer base only. We exclusively focus on that. we have built our own AI marketing platform. This is more of a vertical AI which works with our customers' data and essentially predicts future trends, like what is their propensity of churn, what is the propensity of someone buying X to buy Y, and so on and so forth, through a product called Elixir Insights. We have our product for small business called Elixir Guide and Elixir Analytics, which is a smarter way of doing GA4, because GA4, Google Analytics 4, normally has a bit of a lag. We have been able to crack the code and really make it real time. We also are a certified minority business council member as well. And last but not the least, we have our own nonprofit called Udayan Foundation, where we support young girls from primarily the slums in India to pursue a better life through education as well.
Amazing.
So just to start with the Cyber 5 trends and results, we're a little old now. So, I mean, Cyber 5 has been, but some of the trends are pretty interesting. Quick basis, we use our own technology, as I mentioned, to track those numbers. We segment it in 8 different industry verticals by device, channels, and so on. And we get a lot of customer data, customer purchase insights data. And as I mentioned, this is our 16th annual Cyber 5 results, essentially. So overall, we saw at least our data set, customer data set, and I'm talking about 75 to 80 customers. We saw about a 7% year-on-year e-commerce growth during Cyber 5. The growth, though, was not evenly distributed. As you can see, southern states grew at about 9%. Some of the other states didn't really grow as quickly. But again, a little bit of a context, we saw that the overall internet shopping or online shopping in the southern states was a little lower pre-COVID. We saw a lot of states from the south catch up, specifically during COVID, essentially. And that brought in a lot of first-time users as well. So I think that's the new users which they were acquired by the southern states during COVID continue to drive the growth in South. So we expect that number to continue for some time, at least. In terms of Cyber 5, this is more of a share of orders and revenue by day. So on top, we have Amazon, and the bottom, we have the direct to consumer. So we track both of them separately. So Amazon, and we have really focused only on those customers. So we manage a fair amount of Amazon advertising for our clients, as well as obviously search advertising, social media advertising for our clients as well. So if you really look at it, the trend per se in terms of orders were not too different, Tiffany. So I mean, it's just a very similar curve. What made it interesting, though, when we started plotting by client by profitability or profit margins, then suddenly those trends looked very, very different. For example, the profit margins, let us say on Saturday and Sunday, was higher compared to even Black Friday or Cyber Monday, right? And on the direct to consumer side. Now, the profit margins, understandably, on direct to consumer were bigger compared to Amazon profit margins and so on. So one of the key takeaways was it's interesting to map not just the orders and revenue, but also the margins as well. When we really go down into the category level information, and this is where it sort of becomes really a little technical and deep, you would see that beauty and cosmetics, Cyber 5 2023, we saw about 22% jump in the number of orders. That's a pretty significant jump, right? But look at the average order value that declined by 8%. So what does that say? Obviously, at least one of the immediate extrapolations was there has been heavy discounting in the industry. And this is very clearly a reflection of the heavy discounting. The second thing that obviously cannot really be ignored is the inflation impact as well. The last year inflation number was close to 7.5% during Cyber 5. This year, the inflation number going into Cyber 5 was about, November was about 3.24%. So understandably, all of these things sort of factor in, but we found that to be interesting that all these categories where there was a prominent jump in the number of orders compared to last year, saw a decline in the average order value. So the basket size essentially declined as such. And it would not be very difficult to think that some of this increase in orders may have been driven by heavy discounting as well. Now, the impact on margins is something that we really have to gauge, but just wanted to communicate some of these things. So I've already shared some of this, like, for example, the surge of e-commerce revenue in the South was pretty interesting. If you really look at the day-wise order trends, just mapping and understanding the profitability trend lines can be interesting. And the strong Cyber 5 results may have been driven by this discounting. It'll be interesting to assess the impact of the deep margins on the retailers' bottom lines as such. So that's just wanted to share some of these comments. But let me pause here. Any questions at all? Happy to take that, Tiffany.
That is super interesting. I was
Yeah.
curious about the Amazon, the having October Prime Day.
Yeah.
And
Let me go back. Yeah.
what do you believe that took away from the orders of Cyber 5, or it was incremental? Didn't matter.
We could not find it. Actually, we sort of did the October tracking as well, like Prime Day. It definitely took away some of the orders from the remainder of October, because Prime Day was the 10th and the 11th of October. And then there the Target, Walmart, everyone had their Prime Days also. But we think that it did not have an impact on Cyber 5 sales. It may have definitely advanced some of the sales which may have happened maybe in the last couple of weeks of October and the first week of November. Because overall November sales were okay. It was not huge. Yeah. And I think another question I saw is heavy discounting to AOV increase in the mix of purchase channels. That's absolutely possible, Kerry. I think it's just overall the product composition also has changed as well. And that, to an extent, at least I'll give you simple examples. So we work with a fair range of e-commerce companies, different categories. So specifically, I think I'll quote from let us say a hardware, DIY tools and hardware category. And it was intriguing to see as to their product mix, which sold during Cyber 5, was very different from what they had sold during Cyber 5 2022. And many of these unit prices were actually lower compared to what they were selling earlier as well. And that may have been influenced by the change or shift in the consumer preferences also that was there. And again, 2022, we had gotten out of COVID. So I don't know as to how much of that is COVID influence in 2022. But it was interesting to see as to the different in the overall shopping cart composition in both these Cyber 5s as well.
Yeah, and just to confirm, so Cyber 5, when we refer to it, it's Thanksgiving
to Cyber
Monday.
Cyber Monday.
Yeah, so you have the 5 days essentially of shopping.
That is correct. Yeah. So let me keep moving on. I think some of the customer behavior, we are able to track that pretty deep because of our AI marketing tool, which we sort of just put a tracking pixel. It's a first-party tracking pixel. And through this, we are able to track the customer behavior as such. Mobile orders, no massive surprises. I mean, it was though for the first time that we have been tracking this, we saw fashion apparel, 75% of the orders coming from the mobile devices, while beauty and cosmetics was pretty close by 74%. But I mean, those two are definitely outliers. It was interesting to see though jewelry, the percentage of orders coming from mobile devices to be 68%. That's quite significant specifically. Because normally the jewelry customers that we work with are selling significantly high or high ticket items as such. So you would normally not think that they would buy or have too many purchases through the mobile phones. So we were present.
I think the assumption is they were doing their due diligence on the desktop, like month leading up to the sale, and knew what they had their eye on the prize. And
that is correct. We absolutely believe that. So I think they may have done the research, but final purchase may have been made through the mobile phone. Yes. Great point. Yeah. Moving on, another very interesting trend that we saw, and this one was really interesting. So if you look at it again, we talked about beauty and cosmetics and how the AOV had dipped by about 8%, right? Now look at what happened during Cyber 5, again, Thanksgiving to Cyber Monday, in terms of the items per order. So in terms of shopping cart, the number of items were there. Actually, that went up by 11%. That makes the situation even more complex, Tiffany, because you are selling 11% more units or items per shopping cart, but the shopping cart costs about 8% less.
Nice.
Right? So that almost like validates this entire thesis that there has been heavy discounting, pushing up the overall number of orders, right? The other part which validates that is the latency as well. So again, we are able to track using our Elixir Insights platform, the time between when a visitor lands on the website till the time they make the first purchase, second purchase, and so on, all in an anonymized format. Because I mean, being a GDPR compliant company, we cannot really store any PIIs. So it was interesting to see that a 46% decline in the number of touch points prior to the purchase. Now we are comparing last Cyber 5 versus this Cyber 5, right? So that is a massive shift That is a massive shift by any measure, any means that you can think of. And we were very intrigued, very intrigued with it. The same for food and gourmet as well, and tools and hardware also. So this one was interesting, primarily because mobile, I don't think that's a surprise. The second one, I really want to point out, I mean, one of the things that we really focus on is identifying any perceptible mega shifts in consumer behavior. And we believe that this almost like spontaneous, the lightning deals on Amazon and so on and so forth sort of thing, the deal grab behavior where the shopper swoops in very quickly and purchases that before the product turns out of thing, that may have been to an extent induced by the 2 years of COVID, when inventory was a big problem, if you remember, Tiffany. Right? We had situation, the massive supply chain problems with the containers stuck in the ports and so on and so forth. And many of the items were perpetually out of stock. And there were limited quantities of items as well. That may have led to this, may have really led to this entire sort of an immediacy part. So people are likely to buy very quickly if they recognize that deal is attractive. And we believe the company which really utilized the most to shift the skew this holiday season was yet again Amazon, along with some of the other marketplaces as well, or the retail media networks or marketplaces. And also, I believe that this shift in shopper behavior will last for the foreseeable future also. No, it's an interesting trend. So let us just talk a little bit about this theme, just because if this theme is really as big as I think it is, then marketers have to think about the 4 P's of marketing or the marketing mix very differently. And let me explain. Let us talk about inventory in this case. Now, in terms of inventory, for example, how do you really plan your inventory mix, knowing if suddenly your demand, there is no homogeneity, and it's basically constantly spikes and troughs. It's almost like a very jagged peaks and sort of up and down and so on. It's really difficult to really predict the inventory per se, effectively, unless and until you really have a technology which is able to understand as to what is the propensity of someone purchasing something. So that's where, again, there is a bit of an AI play, understandably, but something to keep in mind. In terms of merchandising, for example, again, it becomes a little tricky, primarily because, again, connected with inventory, what exactly are you promoting? How do you know whether the sudden spike in demand would have for that particular product? And how does that get conveyed or communicated through your marketing efforts overall? And last but not the least, what do you do even with channel marketing, right? Because if you know that most of the buying is really happening in a very specific, very deal-oriented manner, how does your entire channel marketing plan sort of change or evolve so that you are visible in the regular hours, but you really over-invest to ensure that you are not really missing out on those peaks as such. So it really requires for a very different approach towards marketing, a different perspective to marketing as such. So this is interesting. And I think at this point in time, the e-commerce businesses really need to analyze, other than the site metrics, also the shopper metrics as well, things like latency, the time of purchase, the number of items in carts, and so on and so forth. So one of the things that we have done, again, the building smart promotional models, which really balance the demand lift and profitability, I think is going to be more and more important in the future. I mean, again, I talked about our Elixir Insights technology. One of the modules which we recently launched, Tiffany, is really helpful. We are able to use machine learning to predict as to if someone is buying, let us say, product number 41 in this case, what are the other products or SKUs that they are likely to buy also, and how much revenue did that contribute also, right? So suddenly, rather than selling individual SKUs, you are selling product bundles, because that's how your customer is really behaving as well. So it has really become a terrific use or application of data science and machine learning to really be able to keep in tune with all of these fluctuations in demand. So this is Elixir Insights. Anyone is interested in just getting a complimentary demo of this, you can scan this QR code or just try out this URL. But we are seeing some remarkable impact of using AI in marketing. And some of the results that I'm presenting anyways coming from this as well. Like when you talk about
just a friendly reminder, questions, comments, put into the chat or the Q&A and we'll get to them.
And lastly, I wanted to also touch upon the impact of performance max. There has been a lot of talk about AI. This very clearly has been a year when AI really became very prominent. Now, one area, like we do a huge amount of Google advertising, budget management and advertising management. And Performance Max was introduced just in Feb 2022 last year. Or was it the year before? I mean, just sort of my memory, but probably last year, 2022, Feb. And it already accounted for almost like 61% aggregate across. So that's how important AI modules have become. Now, as anyone managing performance banks, you don't really have that much amount of granularity and control and so on. And we firmly believe that this will keep on increasing, whether it is Facebook's Advantage Plus or whether it is Performance Max. The channels will keep on bringing and driving traffic or bringing in new AI modules. And it's our belief that by 2025, at least 80% of all paid media orders and budgets would be flowing through the AI modules as such. The deprecation of the third-party cookie, which starts essentially next month, will really lead to channels intensifying their efforts as well to strengthen their walled gardens. So that's where I think the AI modules really fit in. And again, to really succeed with the AI-powered modules, you really need vertical AI tools. Again, Elixir Insights is what I mentioned as vertical AI tool to supply those high-quality audience signals, which really allows you to conduct those, what I call the rapid adaptive experiments at the channel level. Because the entire game of advertising management has become a lot more AI-driven, and it's a lot more data-driven now. And data-driven marketers, we are seeing as having a significant advantage of anyone else. So those are some of the stats I wanted to show. Before really moving on to the 7 e-commerce trends, which is the key theme, but wanted to share some of these stats as well. Now, some of these trends and themes are based on the observation we have had, collaborating or partnering or managing the campaigns of, as I mentioned, over 150 retail and direct-to-consumer e-commerce companies. And really a significant amount of brainstorming within our NetElixir team, just to understand as to what can we see, what can we really project. So the first theme, and some of these may be a little into the future as well, but we feel that we'll try to start seeing the impact pretty much in 2024 directly. The first one, so I was doing a little bit of a ChatGPT-led discovery process during Black Friday, Emily. And I wanted to check whether the Black Friday deals were good on Amazon, let us say, or a certain company, right? And I asked ChatGPT, can you really research and tell me, are these good prices? And I was amazed to see the accuracy with which ChatGPT 4 was able to do this research and tell me what prices were actually the best prices and what prices were not the best prices. So essentially, I had used something which I firmly feel will become extremely important moving forward. And I really wanted to emphasize that as the big theme. And that is AI essentially changing how we shop forever. And the emergence of what we call the personal AI-driven shopping agents will become extremely important because they remove the shopping friction, leading to a spike in e-commerce sales. And that's my first big point that I really wanted to emphasize, Tiffany, that the personal AI-driven shopping agent is the future of search. And I also believe that that will really remove a lot of friction within closed ecosystems like Meta and Amazon, as well as the open ecosystems like Google as well. And in the spirit of making a prediction or a forecast, Tiffany, this is what typically the e-commerce retail sales data from the overall US census coming in, and they measure it as a percentage of overall retail sales, which happens. As you can see during the COVID, you see that COVID bump and so on. And it seems that at this point in time, per the US census, the number is about 16%, 15.5% and 16%. It's my belief that adoption of these personal shopping agents or AI-based shopping agents may actually have the next impact very similar to what a big force like pandemic has had in terms of the spike. And it is my belief that it would not be impossible to think that the number will spike to 20%. So the next big spike or stimulus to growing the overall online shopping behavior and online shopping purchases is here now. We can call it the age of abundance in e-commerce. And that would really be the second fundamental big shift or mega shift that will forever change e-commerce. And the companies which are able to embrace this personal shopping agents, they are able to build their own chatbots, almost like a concierge for their websites, will be able to ride this wave. And I'm talking about the outcome of this wave. As you can see, again, I'm comparing with the census data, would be 20%. As you can see, during COVID, it went up to about 17%, right? So we are talking about the next big push will potentially come from personal shopping agents. Any questions? Happy to sort of answer
drop them in the chat at Q&A, because these are some big topics. Exciting, but big topics.
These are very big topics. And on the same note, Tiffany, I think the emergence of search agents is also here as well. So what I showed in the chatbot in the previous slide, I mean, I was using ChatGPT as my search agent, right? It was sort of finding me the deals and also answering if these are the best deals available, right? So that, I think, will become very popular. Now, what does it really mean for search? It will obviously lead to some people probably not spending enough time really scrolling through those links and finding out as to what they want. I mean, why, quote unquote, waste so much time when you can really get that information delivered to you by a chatbot, which is your own research agent. And the second big theme I really wanted to talk about is the search generative experience as well. So it's very interesting. Just a few hours back, Google announced the launch of Gemini, their most powerful AI process. And yesterday, Microsoft Bing added deep search generative feature, which is just incredible. It really sort of just takes it to a different level. So deep search effectively is more of a generative AI feature, which really helps answer the complex questions that don't have simple answers. And potentially, it may actually sort of cause a lot of stealing of clicks from the regular web search, organic search, let us say SEO listings, as well as the SEM listings and so on. I saw some questions come in. So let me...
Yeah, we have quite a few. You want to go into them real quick?
Okay. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, because there's some great questions. So first is the trend more to have a personalized shopping agent on a specific direct-to-consumer site, or will customers go to Google or Amazon to shop across brands?
That's a great question. I would say all, Tiffany. That's what my, again, prediction is. I mean, at this point in time, that's what we can do is predict. Amazon definitely is going to have one. I mean, 100%. That's the reason their investment in Anthropic is very clearly to that thing. Meta is going to have one. Very clearly, that Meta IBM alliance, which was announced just last week, I think is an effort to this. And they actually have also launched or introduced effectively a Meta shopping agent as well, which again is another trend, which I think will sort of really drive tremendous amount of social commerce activity as well. So that's happening. And Google, obviously, through Bard, will sort of go into the direction. Now, this is where I think there is a big opportunity for the businesses or the e-commerce, the direct-to-consumer, as well as the retail companies as well, to have their or invest in their own shopping agents. So once the customer is there on your website, there is an opportunity for you to communicate in your brand voice. That is only yours, right? Google can't have your brand voice. You can have your brand voice. The second part is really show it in a way that you really want to effectively show. So I think you have a lot more control effectively. And the third component, which I am super excited and confident about, is one of my later themes that I'll be sharing is the cookieless world and the deprecation of the third-party cookies. You will get a tremendous amount of extremely valuable first-party data, which can be incredibly powerful in helping you creating a much better experience for your customer as such. So I think it's a combination of all, but I would urge any direct-to-consumer and retail business to seriously think about having your own chatbot, which can communicate, which can be your brand ambassador, literally, effectively, which can engage with your customers as such.
Excellent. And how do you feel SEO will play in the role of all of this?
That's an interesting one, because search generative experiences, I think, understanding the EEAT would become a more important authority part. But deep search, essentially, I mean, if you think of it just even a very sort of a high level, but seems to be logical in the sense that if you are getting all of these different options as well without really having to even search twice or thrice or 5 times, then why would you not do that? So it may actually eat into some of the organic search listings. The second part also, I think, which again, all of this is a prediction. We don't know what we don't know. I think it would really get into a lot more personalized form. So think from that personalization is what the horizontal AI technologies, like whether it is Bard or let us say Bing effectively would be driving. So from that perspective, I mean, what are some of the tactics that you can really do to really promote and support personalization in terms of search would be the next one. So I think we have talked about the structured data and all of this stuff for a long time, but it is just going to be at a next level in terms of how much meaning are you able to provide in the search listings. But most definitely, I mean, the indications are pretty clear with the deep search and so on, that there would be an impact on the regular web search.
And is it safe to assume that many of the products that ChatGPT is recommending are already in a top search position?
Actually, not surprisingly different. Actually, not. That was what I was surprising about. For example, in my search, if you really look at the previous slide, I talked about Shields. If you really look at Shields, it's not really there on the right at the top. If I think that was the next one. Sorry, yes, Shields effectively was not there at the top, but they were able to sort of find out and sort of promote that to me. Right. So that's, I think, I was pretty intrigued with that. So we didn't really see any direct correlation, though, or very direct correlation. Yeah.
And are consumers accessing AI shopping through ChatGPT primarily, or are there other sites or avenues that people are
actually, my next slide sort of talks about that almost.
Great.
So effectively, I think this is the core search market. And I have a pretty big prediction to make. I believe the core search market, Bing's share may actually increase by 8% plus. For example, today, Google made the Gemini announcements. It will be rolled out slowly. If you look at it, Gemini Ultra has not been rolled out yet. It will be in the future. It's my belief that ChatGPT 5 will get rolled out before that. I mean, if you really look at the blog post today, Gemini, they have tried to compare it versus ChatGPT 4. And it's significantly comparable. And we are talking about ultra comparing, which is like more of the complex searches and so on and so forth, or asks. Now, if you really look at ChatGPT 5, I think that will be a game changer, which will really accelerate the entire curve in terms of more people searching on Bing. So that's, I think, what my prediction is. Already, if you really compare, this is from ComScore. And as you can see, October versus November, already Bing has gained some amount of share. As you can see, Microsoft Sites has gone up from 26.9% share to about 27.6% share, even though it is 0.7%. Remember, it is 1 month. And we are talking about a massive number of searches overall. At the same time, Google has declined 61.4% to 60.9%, right? So many of them are accessing through ChatGPT, like myself. But if you combine ChatGPT with Bing search, which is bigger at this point in time in terms of ecosystem, I think we are talking about some significant impact to the core search universe. One positive thing, which I think ComScore also highlighted, that the overall number of searches will go up, because a conversational search, as we call it, is really leading to a steep increase in the number of searches. Almost like a 5% increase happened in total number of searches as well. So I think the entire ecosystem or universe is expanding, but within that Bing ChatGPT combined is slowly starting to make an impact or move the needle. For the first few months, it was not even observable. I mean, this is just September, October. If you had gone to August, minimal shift, but it is starting to happen now.
Awesome. Here's a really interesting question.
Yeah.
So do you think like a ChatGPT will ever implement advertising or sponsors within the answers? So if you're looking for a pair of shoes and then a sponsored ad comes up with what you may like.
I wouldn't discount this as a possibility, because if you think about the overall monetization models per se, right? I mean, modernization model at this point in time, ChatGPT is for the plus users, $20 a month. That's basically what the monetization is. Uh, However, they have to be careful if they go into the advertising part and clearly calling that out. Primarily because otherwise, I mean, the entire thing is based on the credibility part as well, right? I mean, one of the big struggles which I have mentioned very bluntly to the Google team last year, or actually this year beginning as well. I mean, much of the Google page, the search page before ChatGPT came in and they sort of came up with the search or the chat side, had really come to resemble more of a flea market. There were like ads all around everywhere, right? It was just a bad consumer experience, sort of searcher experience. And that is something which I feel was a mistake which Google made, just being very direct and blunt about it. And which really led to a competitor coming in, and they're able to sort of switch those searchers or search users of Google who were not really completely sort of, let us say, a little disappointed or frustrated with this inferior experience on the Google search page. And they were the first to move. And that was a mistake to do. Thankfully, because the Google name is so strong and the Google overall experience overall is so strong with the legacy, I think they were able to still maintain and preserve most of this, but they still lost share. If they didn't lose to the ChatGPT being combined, they also lost to Amazon and marketplaces and TikTok as well. TikTok became suddenly the #1 search engine for the Gen Z folks as such, right? So I think it's extremely important for the channels to constantly focus on improving the consumer experience, for them the searcher experience, rather than just trying to really make entire thing a paid billboard. But having said that, other monetization models, I'm pretty sure they are being tested. We don't really know of any upfront. So that would be a very long answer to your great question.
Yeah, very interesting.
So let me keep moving on. The next one is even more stark. I know some of my predictions are pretty big. So we'd all talked about retail media, and this is my good friend Andrew Lipsman from eMarketer does a lot of research on this, the insider intelligence and so on. So overall, they are expecting a terrific sort of almost like a growth on retail media networks. The thing I am concerned about, I have mentioned in the bullets as such, right? So if you really look at retail media networks, Amazon continues to account for 75% of all the ad spend. And we all know that there has been such shift from Google onto Amazon. There has been media ad spend shift to Amazon and so on. I don't see that balance 25% coming down. And it has been now about 4 years of talking about retail media networks. Amazon has pretty much maintained their 75% hold. Hopefully, Walmart and some of the others, Target, Kroger, etc., can really pick up. The 75% may decline to 70%, but that 5% shift will not really go to the smaller players. It will most likely be distributed among the next 4 RS, the retail media networks, which is Walmart, Kroger, Target, and eBay, right? So I cringe to think as to what would happen with the smaller retail media networks and so on. So as I thought of it, I mean, this was an interesting graphic that I am going to show you. This is from McKinsey's study on unleashing the power of retail media networks. And if you really look at what are the features which brands care about as they really decide to advertise and not advertise on retail media networks. And the first one is delivers performance. Delivers performance, does this retail media network channel deliver performance which I can't get elsewhere, right? ROAS. Does it offer access to audiences I couldn't reach otherwise? Now, if you really take just these 2 points, unfortunately, many of the smaller retail media networks which have started don't have enough traffic and don't have definitely enough unique traffic as such, right? So still, whatever we say, I mean, the overall audience is still pretty concentrated to the bigger players. I mean, the smaller ones, retail media networks, unfortunately, don't really have any sizable unique audiences, so as to say. And that is a struggle. And we feel that 2024 would be the year when we'll start seeing that struggle really come to fruition, effectively because of the first mini shakeout. Some of the smaller retail media networks which have come up, they are struggling. Like the oxygen for them is basically traffic. And they don't have as much amount of unique audiences, and they'll see marketers switch to more, bigger and more popular retail media networks as well, where they can actually make money. So that's the overall prediction. It has nothing to do with, we still believe very firmly we are in line or in alignment with let us say, e-marketer retail insider intelligence group, when they talk about the growth in the space, but the space growth will be very lopsided. It will be very clearly skewed toward the top 5 retail media networks, which between them, just FYI, account for almost about 90% of the overall traffic as well as advertising spend, which is sort of going in there.
Wow.
Marketing to always on socially conscious deal hunters has to be really focused. I have mentioned it earlier, the deal grabbing behavior as well. Now we can, as I mentioned through Elixir Insights, I showed you the example of those product bundles and predictive product bundles and so on. They can provide smart recommendations, but I think it's important for marketers to reorient their entire approach. I mean, thriftiness essentially is the norm now almost. And the customer is always on, always connected. And the last but not the least, nearly half of the US millennials are likely to consider carbon neutrality, and they are definitely socially conscious as such, right? So Tiffany and I were just discussing before we started this webinar as to what we talk about a lot about Gen AI and AGI, let us say, generative AI. But the amount of energy consumption of all of these servers and the entire, which is required to really support this generative AI models is enormous. It's just enormous. And that goes exactly opposite to the carbon neutrality area, specifically the focus and so, the causes as such. So it's important as well. While as humanity, we are obviously enthralled by the potential of generative AI to cause, as many of the leading thought leaders, especially in the Silicon Valley, have called the age of abundance. But age of abundance shouldn't really be coming at a very, very high cost of just the carbon neutrality and the climate changes and so on and so forth. So it's going to be a fine balance, and that's going to be the main check, in my opinion, which really, to an extent, causes at some point in time the non-stop growth of generative AI to slow down a little bit in 2024. And more innovations to come out of what exists, primarily because we really need to be responsible as we are constantly investing in these technologies as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Moving on, the next one again is a big one, and there has been a lot of conversation about the social commerce, etc. So there are 2 forces which are important to keep in mind. The first part is the inclusion of the Gen Z buyer in the entire social commerce group, the people who use social media to the ones who are buying using social media is just about 50% per e-marketer again. Now, that's, I think, one thing, and TikTok really addresses that particular user base, because as you can see very clearly, Gen Z overall social media and their social shopping behavior will constantly keep on increasing effectively. And TikTok shops will be driving that very clearly. But at the same time, it's also my belief that Meta's investment in, for example, this was an update just a couple of months back on the Meta blog, effectively. So I think, again, that entire concept of an advanced conversational assistant will break down some of the frictions, effectively, that are being experienced in the social shopping space. Because if you look at it, this is the social shopping space has been. And e-marketers' projection is it will stay flat, 50%, roughly about 50%, that is a 46.6%, 48.4%, 50.9%. It is my belief that these advanced conversational assistants, or let us say AI agent, will remove the frictions and lead to a lot more targeted shopping recommendations, etc., smart buying recommendations, which don't seem like you are getting sold. It's almost like, and they would really have a tremendous power, and obviously at a very different level in terms of the capabilities when it comes to what product are you really even showing to, let us say, a Facebook, a Meta user at any point in time, and so on and so forth. And it is my belief that at least 65% of all the social media users on Meta by 2027 will actually have shopped using or from Meta or Instagram shop and TikTok shop and so on and so forth. I think it's more of the Instagram and the Meta shops effectively that would be there. So I would actually be a lot more optimistic compared to what eMarketer has forecasted. almost by about 14% increase in social shoppers. Again, really led by the prevalence and the adaptation of just these shopping agents, these very smart AI-driven shopping agents as well. So again, one theme which you probably would have guessed, this is the third time I am mentioning about the shopping agents as such. So shopping agents making an impact as personal agents in terms of helping you do the research pre-purchase, helping you to really do search research. And this is where research in terms of, I think one of the questions was, will Facebook, the channels also develop their shopping agents? I believe so, yes. And this was an example as to how Meta's shopping agent will actually reduce the shopping friction and really increase the number of shoppers who engage in social commerce as such.
Mm-hmm.
The next, I think, is something that I've talked about it at least for the last couple of years, and so it's not really new. But now we are, I think, there. I mean, Google has used, or Alphabet has used all of its, let us say, rain checks overall to now we really have to get this thing done. I mean, Google will be starting to disable the third-party cookies for 1% of Chrome users starting next month. And they plan to complete the entire process by end of 2024. And I cannot really emphasize the importance of you having a first-party data strategy, right? Because we are already seeing, some of you may have seen, it's a bad analogy, but still a GF4 or Google Analytics 4 is a potential analogy as such, right? Since the move from universal analytics, we saw only about 50 to 60% of the people really make the transition. And everyone has struggled, right? I mean, the data refreshes after 2 days and it's not very granular, and you are used to using universal analytics, you can't. So expect very similar things to happen when this happens starting from next month. You are going to see massive deviations in terms of the actual numbers, what is reported number and so on. So I would request, if you have any need, we will be happy to help. I can really get our data team into action to help you to make this transition into the first party data world. But I can't really overemphasize the importance of doing this today.
Mm-hmm.
So just to summarize the 7 e-commerce trends, the AI-powered personal shopping agents will lead to significant growth. I'm predicting about 20% of total retail sales by 2025. Conversational search will drive a 10 to 12% increase in total search query volume. Personal search agents will make the search process frictionless and less tedious. Bing's share of core search will increase by about 8 percentage points by the end of 2024. Retail media networks will continue to increase primarily because of their bottom of the funnel value. However, the total RMN ad share of the top 5 will remain pretty much considered about 90%. I don't see that changing tremendously. Smaller RMNs, unfortunately, will start falling off the grid in 2024. Vertical AI tools, like I talked about, Elixir Insights, can help e-commerce businesses adapt to this new shopping patterns and so on. We're just using our own AI that we have built in where we sort of set up our product innovation center, Tiffany, in 2017. So it's like 6 years of work culminating into this machine learning models that we have really built. So this can help. TikTok shops will drive more Gen Z shoppers, social shoppers, while AI agents will continue to make social shopping more frictionless and effective. And both these factors will lead to a spike in social commerce. So I know there was a lot there. Just wanted to share all of this stuff. Happy to answer any questions. Awesome. I also have an offer for all the attendees today. I mean, again, an extension of our AI tool. Google Ads will get impacted, and understandably with PMAX, etc., it is getting impacted. If you scan this QR code, it's almost like you can generate your own Google Ads account future ready scorecard, which tells you as to how far off your account is in terms of readiness to this new world of AI-driven Google Ads is. So that's what I had in terms of presentation. I'll end with, again, what I started with, probably, Tiffany, that we have the foundation which supports these young girls. Very proud at this time, 22 girls are being supported by us. Many of these girls, they didn't really have much of a support to study beyond 10th grade. And 3 of them actually are working in large multinational corporations at this point in time. So it really gives us a tremendous amount of pride, and we are extremely thankful to our clients, partners, and most importantly, to NetElixir employees and team members to really support this cause as such. So if you really feel interested, have any interest, please scan this QR code, go to our site, just check it out, just some of the work that we are doing Even a $10 or $20 can go a very long way in supporting these girls pursue their dreams of a better life. So
It's
that's
an amazing organization. I went on the Giving Tuesday and checked it out and donated, and beautiful organization. Well done.
Oh, thank you.
Awesome work.
Thank you very much. So that's what I had. Any questions? This is a Google Ads scorecard. We have already talked about it. Happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, final questions, comments, put them into the chat. We're almost at time. We do have a couple more questions here we can run through real quick.
Sure.
We wrap up. So how do you think about advertising on the RM ends versus using the ad dollars on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok shops?
A great point. Again, I would say it depends on the tests that you should do. I mean, as a marketer, I think testing will become the #1 competence. And I'm just repeating that. Experimentation and testing will be the #1 competence for marketers in the cookieless world, because you'll have to deal with a lot of unknowns, right? You wouldn't know the impact and so on. And with the AI modules like Advantage Plus and so on, it will be becoming more and more difficult as such. So I think one of the part of testing is really looking at your channel portfolio, right? And really looking at and testing out and reserving something, setting an expectation and seeing whether this works or not. So there is no foolproof answer as such. It's just that it may be safer for you to really not put all of your eggs in one basket, but effectively your basket of channels or portfolio of channels may look very different from, let us say, Tiffany's basket or my basket and so on. But I think testing is the only option for you to find it out, or the only way for you to really find this out as such.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Well, Udayan, always, you bring so much awesome content, so much information, and you always get it done within that hour. I've always
I finished it. Oh,
like,
awesome.
wow, it's like a whole semester course here. Like we got it done in like 50
Too
minutes.
kind.
Beautiful.
Too kind.
We definitely encourage follow-up conversations with the NetElixir team. They are fantastic. We will be following up with everybody with contact information and would love to have a conversation with you. That's how we get the content ideas for future events such as this. So feel free to email me, Tiffany at BWGconnect.com. Time on the calendar. So with that, it is a wrap. Have a lovely Wednesday, y'all. Going into the weekend. Happy holiday season, and hope to see you on another event soon. Thank you so much.
Happy holiday, everyone.
Till next time.
Thank you.